You can't heal while holding hands with the one who hurt you. That idea, simple but profound, shows up in more places than just relationships. It's a truth about how we relate to the world, our past, our limitations, and even our pain. And it connects deeply with a broader truth. Asterisk asterisk knowledge transforms constraints into opportunities asterisk asterisk. When we cling to the source of our suffering, whether it's a person, a belief, or a habit, we stay stuck. We limit our ability to see clearly, we become captives of a narrow view, but when we acquire knowledge, real, deep understanding, we can reframe, release, and rebuild. That's when the transformation begins. Most people try to heal while remaining in the same environment that broke them. They hold onto the familiar because it feels safe, even when it's harmful. But healing isn't about safety, it's about clarity. It's about shedding illusions. When you start to understand why something hurt you, what patterns you've been stuck in, and how to navigate beyond them, you begin the real process of growth. This is what knowledge does. It doesn't just make you smarter, it liberates you. It allows you to stop holding hands with pain and start walking towards something better. Knowledge shows you that the constraint was never the problem. The problem was the lack of perspective. You thought you needed that job, that person, that version of yourself to survive, but knowledge teaches you otherwise. You learn that the job was a safety net, not a purpose. That the relationship was a mirror for your wounds, not your worth. That the old version of you was just a stepping stone, not a final destination. With this clarity, constraints become doorways, breakups become breakthroughs. Limitations become leverage. The world doesn't change when you gain knowledge asterisk asterisk, you asterisk asterisk change. And because you change, you begin to interact with the world differently. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift is everything. It's the moment you stop suffering passively and start growing actively. You stop clinging to what was and start building what could be. It's hard to let go of what hurt you. There's familiarity there. There's identity there, but knowledge tells you that comfort isn't the same as peace. You might feel familiar pain, but it's still pain. True peace comes from freedom, and freedom comes from understanding. When you understand why something isn't good for you, you don't need to be told to let go. You just do, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. This applies to every part of life. Think of someone who grew up poor and believed money was evil. That belief became a constraint, but once they gained financial knowledge, they understood that money isn't evil, it's a tool. That understanding transformed poverty from a trap into a challenge they could overcome. Or someone stuck in a toxic cycle of blame, always pointing fingers. With psychological insight, they began to take responsibility. That shift turned resentment into resilience. Constraints are never the end of the story. They're just the beginning of the chapter where you decide what to do with them. The more you learn, the more options you see. You realize you're not as stuck as you thought. You're not as small as you feared. You're not as broken as you felt. You just didn't have the knowledge yet, and now you do. So stop holding hands with what hurt you. Let go, not blindly, but with understanding. Learn from the pain. Let it teach you. Let it reveal the places where you were unaware, asleep, or afraid. Then use that knowledge to grow. Use it to expand. Use it to turn every past wound into present wisdom. Because that's what healing really is. Not forgetting the hurt, but seeing it so clearly that it no longer controls you. Knowledge gives you that clarity, and once you have it, even your deepest pain becomes a path forward. And that's the truth. Knowledge transforms constraints into opportunities. If you're willing to let go of what once held you back. You can't heal while holding hands with the one who hurt you. That sentence lingers like a quiet truth we don't want to accept, but it applies far beyond personal relationships. It touches every area of our lives, including how we use our time, our energy, our ideas. To keep holding on to what hurt us, be it a habit, a mindset, or a person, is to stay in a loop that leads nowhere. It's not just emotional, it's practical, and it connects with a deeper idea. Reusability is a function of understanding. We can only make something truly reusable, truly sustainable, if we understand it at a fundamental level. Without understanding, we're just repeating, not evolving. Without understanding, we are stuck, healing nothing, building nothing. Most of us try to reuse what's broken. We cling to the same behaviors, the same thoughts, the same systems, expecting different results. We keep investing energy in the familiar, even when the familiar is hurting us. It's like returning to a blueprint that's already failed but pretending that this time it'll work, but it won't, not without understanding why it failed in the first place. You can't grow if you're repeating patterns blindly. And you can't reuse a pattern you don't fully comprehend. Take love, for example. If you don't understand what led to heartbreak, if you don't see the red flags, the unmet needs, the unspoken boundaries, you'll keep repeating the same story in a new face. You're reusing the experience, but not wisely. You're reliving pain, not learning from it. That's the difference between memory and understanding. Memory replays the hurt. Understanding rewrites it. In work, too, we often mistake repetition for mastery. We think doing the same task over and over makes us efficient, but without reflection, it just makes us mechanical. True efficiency, the kind that scales, that compounds, comes only when you understand what you're doing well enough to build systems around it. That's when your time becomes reusable. That's when your effort compounds. You don't just work harder, you work smarter because you understand what matters and what doesn't. You don't burn yourself out on what's unnecessary. But you can't do this if you're still entangled in systems that hurt you, systems that drain your creativity, jobs that don't value your time, people who don't see your worth. Healing is the process of stepping back and saying, I see what this is. I see what it's doing to me, and now I choose to do differently. That choice, conscious in form, is only possible with understanding, and understanding in turn makes what you've been through reusable, not as pain, but as wisdom. You begin to see that your past isn't something to erase, it's something to refine. Every mistake becomes a teaching, every failure becomes a tool, but only if you stop holding onto it emotionally and start understanding it intellectually. That's when your story becomes fuel instead of a cage. That's when you reuse the past, not as weight, but as leverage. Even time itself becomes reusable when you understand it. People waste time because they don't know where it goes. They don't understand the cost of distraction, the price of indecision, the drain of mental clutter. But once you understand your rhythms, your priorities, your triggers, you begin to use time like a craftsman uses tools. Intentionally, wisely, with care. That's the kind of reusability that leads to peace, not just productivity. So healing isn't about forgetting. It's not about cutting everything off and pretending it never happened. It's about understanding deeply enough that you no longer have to fear repeating it. You no longer need to hold hands with what hurt you because you've outgrown the need to. You've seen it clearly. You've learned its lesson. And now it's something you carry in your mind, not your heart. The things that hurt us can become the very things that shape us if we stop reacting and start understanding. Reusability only exists through wisdom. You can't reuse time, effort, or experience if you're stuck in confusion. Clarity makes reuse possible, and clarity only comes when you let go long enough to look, to study, to really learn. So if you're still holding on to what hurt you, know this: you're not just delaying your healing, you're blocking your ability to grow. Understanding is your way out. Understanding is what makes the past useful, your energy renewable, your patterns transformable. And once you have it, you no longer need to hold on. You've already taken the best of what it had to offer. You can't heal while holding hands with the one who hurt you. It's a simple truth, but one most people avoid because letting go feels like loss. But what you're actually losing is a version of reality that kept you small. Holding on to what hurt you, whether it's a person, a belief, a memory, or even a system, is holding on to a world that has already outgrown its usefulness. Healing begins with seeing things differently, and seeing things differently begins with knowledge, because knowledge doesn't just help you escape the past, it expands the universe of what's possible. When we're stuck in pain, our vision narrows, the mind contracts, we see fewer options, fewer doors, fewer chances. We believe that we've reached the limit of what life can offer, that this is just how things are. But that's not truth. It's a symptom of a lack of understanding. When you learn something new about yourself, about others, about the world, you break the walls of that mental prison. You realize that what felt final was just a chapter. That what felt like a dead end was only a detour. Knowledge doesn't change the past, but it changes what the past means, and that changes everything. If you're still emotionally attached to what hurt you, you're not fully available for what could help you. You're not open to new ways of seeing, thinking, or living. You're trying to grow in soil that no longer nourishes you. You're trying to find light in a room that's already gone dark. Knowledge is what opens the windows. It lets the air back in. It doesn't erase your scars. It just shows you that scars aren't the end of beauty. They're the beginning of wisdom. Think of how limited people's lives used to be without education, without access to information, without exposure to other ways of being. What was possible in those circumstances? Very little, but once knowledge entered the picture, through books, through travel, through the internet, their idea of what life could be exploded outward. What they thought was impossible was suddenly happening. What they thought they couldn't survive, they not only survived, they built from it. The same happens internally. When you learn about emotional patterns, childhood trauma, generational cycles, self-worth, boundaries, you begin to see that your pain wasn't personal. It was systemic, and what is systemic can be transformed. Knowledge expands your emotional universe too. You stop thinking in black and white. They hurt me, so they must be evil. I failed, so I must be worthless. But knowledge gives you nuance. Maybe they were broken too. Maybe failure is how growth begins. Maybe there's more to the story than pain. And when you understand the story, you no longer have to keep repeating it. You no longer have to keep holding hands with it just to feel safe. You can release it, not with bitterness, but with grace, because now you see the bigger picture. The biggest gift of knowledge is possibility. Pain convinces you that options are limited. Knowledge reminds you that options are limitless. You thought you needed that person to be whole, but knowledge shows you how to love yourself. You thought you needed that job to feel successful, but knowledge teaches you how to define success on your own terms. You thought your past defined your future, but knowledge helps you rewrite the rules. Every new truth you discover is a key, and the more keys you hold, the more doors you can open. But none of this happens if you keep holding onto what hurt you. Healing isn't just emotional, it's informational. It's not just about feeling better, it's about knowing better. You can't build a new life with old assumptions. You can't expand your world with a map drawn by your pain. You need new coordinates, new beliefs. New knowledge, and once you have it, everything shifts, your limits stretch, your reality updates. You stop living in a version of life that was written by fear and start writing a new one based on clarity, courage, and vision. That's what healing really looks like, not forgetting the past, but understanding it so well that it no longer defines you. And when that happens, your universe, internally and externally, becomes infinite.